The coffee shop on Fifth Avenue had that particular quality of autumn light that made everything look slightly unreal, like a memory already half forgotten. It was the kind of October morning where the air smelled of rain that hadn't fallen yet and fallen leaves that would soon be swept away. Sarah sat by the window, watching the steam rise from her cup, trying to remember the exact moment everything had started to unravel. Or perhaps it was the exact moment everything had started to come together. She wasn't sure anymore. Her phone buzzed. A text from her daughter, Mia. "Mom, don't forget parent-teacher night is Thursday. Miss Rodriguez wants to talk about my math." Sarah smiled despite herself. Mia was 7 and already negotiating the world with more confidence than Sarah had possessed at twice that age. She typed back a quick confirmation, then returned to her coffee, to the window, to the careful architecture of her solitude. She had built a good life here. A small but successful graphic design firm, a sunny apartment in Brooklyn that she and Mia had filled with plants and books, and the particular chaos of a household run by two people who both hated doing dishes. She had friends, a routine, a favorite Thai place that knew her order. She had constructed something stable after years of instability, something predictable after too much surprise. And she had done it alone, which was exactly how she'd needed it to be. The door chimed. Sarah glanced up reflexively, the way people do in coffee shops, and her heart simply stopped. Not metaphorically, not poetically, but with a genuine physical lurch that made her grip the table. Because walking through the door, shaking rain from an expensive wool coat, was Alex Chun. No, not Chun. Alex Reeves now, according to the business card she'd seen yesterday. Her new boss. The woman she'd spent the last 8 years trying not to think about. Sarah had known, of course. When she'd accepted the position at Meridian Creative 3 weeks ago, she'd seen the name on the organizational chart. Alexandra Reeves, creative director. She'd told herself it was a different Alex. Common enough name. New York was full of Alexes. But she'd known. Some part of her had known and had applied anyway, had interviewed anyway, had signed the contract anyway. Some part of her that was apparently much braver or much more foolish than the rest. Alex hadn't seen her yet. Sarah watched her order at the counter, watched the barista smile, that particular smile people reserved for beautiful women who were also polite. Alex had always been beautiful, but time had refined it, sharpened it. The soft roundness of 26 had given way to elegant angles. Her dark hair was shorter now, professional, though Sarah could still remember how it had looked long, spread across a pillow in the apartment they'd shared in Boston. Sarah should leave. She should absolutely leave. She had 15 minutes before she needed to be at the office, and this coffee shop was 3 blocks away from Meridian's headquarters, which meant Alex probably came here often, which meant Sarah should find a new coffee shop immediately. She was already gathering her bag when Alex turned from the counter and their eyes met. The recognition was instant and total. Alex's expression cycled through surprise, confusion, something that might have been joy, and then settled into careful blankness. Sarah knew that blankness. It was the same expression Alex had worn the day Sarah had left, standing in the doorway of their apartment with a suitcase and no explanation that made any sense. Alex crossed the coffee shop in 5 strides. She moved the way she always had, with purpose and grace, like someone who had never questioned her right to take up space in the world. Sarah. Just her name. Nothing else. And Sarah heard everything in it, 8 years of silence, of unanswered questions, of a love that had been left bleeding on a bathroom floor. "Hi," Sarah said, and her voice sounded strange to her own ears. "I was going to tell you. Before Monday. I was going to." "You're the new senior designer," Alex said. It wasn't a question. "Sarah Mitchell. I saw the name but I didn't. You went back to your maiden name." 7 years ago. Sarah's hands were shaking. She pressed them flat against the table. After the divorce. Something flickered across Alex's face. "You were married. For 3 years. It didn't work out." Sarah tried for a casual tone and missed it by miles. "People grow apart." Alex sat down without being invited, which was so characteristically Alex that Sarah felt something crack open in her chest. "I didn't know you were in New York." 4 years now. I needed a fresh start after. Sarah trailed off. After what? After the marriage to a kind woman she'd never really loved? After realizing she was raising a daughter alone and that alone was actually preferable to the alternative? After a lot of things. "You have a daughter." Alex said it with certainty, not question, and Sarah's blood went cold. How did you? Your portfolio. The illustration section. There's a series called Mia's World. Unless that's not. She's 7, Sarah said quietly. The barista called Alex's name and neither of them moved. Her name is Mia. Alex was doing math in her head. Sarah could see it happening, could see the exact moment Alex arrived at the answer. 8 years ago, Sarah had left Boston. 7.5 years ago, Mia had been born. The timeline was obvious and damning. Sarah. Alex's voice had changed, gone soft and dangerous. Is she? I need to get to work, Sarah said, standing abruptly. Her chair scraped against the floor too loudly. Several people looked over. I'll see you Monday. At the office. We can keep this professional. She was halfway to the door when Alex caught up with her, hand gentle on her elbow. Wait. Please. Alex stopped, seemed to gather herself. Does she know about me? Sarah looked at the woman she'd loved more than she'd thought possible, the woman she'd left because love hadn't seemed like enough when weighed against fear and doubt and the ghost of her own mother's disappointments. No, she said. She doesn't know anything about you. She pulled away gently and walked out into the October morning, leaving Alex standing in the coffee shop with an unclaimed latte and 8 years of questions. The Meridian Creative offices occupied the top 3 floors of a converted warehouse in Tribeca, all exposed brick and floor-to-ceiling windows and the sort of aggressively hip design choices that signaled both money and a studied casualness about having it. Sarah's new desk was positioned near the eastern windows, which meant she got the morning light, which meant she had to look at the city emerging from darkness every day and think about all the ways a person could be visible and hidden at the same time. She'd made it through her first 2 weeks by being exceptionally good at her job. The welcome packet had included a detailed list of current projects, and Sarah had thrown herself into them with the focused intensity of someone trying not to think about anything else. She redesigned the branding for a boutique hotel chain. She art-directed a photo shoot for an organic skincare line. She stayed late, came in early, and managed to avoid being alone with Alex through a combination of careful timing and strategic conference room bookings. It couldn't last. She knew it couldn't last. But she was trying. On her third Monday, Alex appeared at her desk at 11 in the morning with 2 coffees and an expression that suggested negotiation was not on the table. Conference Room B. Now. We need to talk about the Stellamar campaign. Sarah had been at Meridian long enough to know that the Stellamar campaign was the biggest account the agency had landed in 3 years. A luxury resort brand looking to rebrand for a younger demographic. The kind of project that could make or break careers. She took the coffee, careful not to let their fingers touch, and followed Alex to the conference room. Alex closed the door. The room had glass walls, which meant the entire office could see them but not hear them, which felt like a particular form of torture. I'm assigning you as lead designer on Stellamar. Sarah almost dropped her coffee. What? Alex, I've been here 3 weeks. There are senior designers who've been here for years. Who don't have your vision or your technical skill, Alex interrupted. I've seen your portfolio. I've seen what you did with the Morrison Hotel redesign. This is exactly your aesthetic. She paused, and when she spoke again her voice had gentled. I'm not doing this because of us. I'm doing this because you're the best person for the job. Us. Such a small word for something that had been so enormous. Sarah sat down at the conference table, wrapping both hands around the coffee cup for something to anchor her. Okay. Thank you. I'll start pulling together some initial concepts. Good. Alex sat across from her, maintaining a careful distance. Sarah, we need to talk. Not about work. About. Please don't. Sarah's voice came out sharper than she intended. I can't. Not here. Not now. Then when? Alex leaned forward, and there was something raw in her face that made Sarah's chest ache. You show up in my city, at my company, and I'm supposed to just pretend we're strangers? Pretend I don't have questions. I don't have answers, Sarah said. It was the truth, or at least as close as she could get to it. Nothing you'd want to hear. Try me. Sarah looked at her former lover, her new boss, the person she'd hurt more than anyone else in her life. I was 26 and terrified. You wanted everything, marriage, kids, the whole future mapped out. And I wanted it too, so badly, but I also knew that my mother would never speak to me again. That my family would. She stopped, collected herself. I thought I was protecting us both. I thought a clean break would be kinder than watching it fall apart slowly. So you just left, Alex said flatly. No discussion, no chance to work through it. You just left. Yes. And then you married someone else. Had a child. I tried to be normal, Sarah said, and the words tasted bitter. I tried to be what my mother wanted. It lasted 3 years before I couldn't pretend anymore. She met Alex's eyes. I've spent the last 4 years building a life that's actually mine. Mia and I are happy. We're good. And I'm sorry if this is selfish, but I need to protect that. I need to protect her. Alex was quiet for a long moment. Outside the glass walls, the office continued its usual rhythm: designers at computers, account executives on phone calls, the art director gesturing emphatically at a mood board. Normal life, continuing. I'm not going to disrupt your life, Alex said finally. But I do need to know. Is she mine? Sarah had known this moment was coming. Had rehearsed various answers, various lies, various ways of deflecting. But sitting here, in this glass box where everyone could see them but no one could hear them, she found she was tired of lying. Yes. The word seemed to take up all the air in the room. Alex closed her eyes, opened them, and Sarah watched her absorb the truth, metabolize it, transform it into something she could carry. You were pregnant when you left. I didn't know. Not then. I found out 2 weeks later. Sarah's hands were trembling again. And by then you'd already moved on with your life, and I was back in Ohio trying to figure out how to be the daughter my mother wanted, and I thought it would be easier for everyone if I just handled it alone. Easier for who? Alex's voice had gone very quiet, very controlled. Because it sure as hell wasn't easier for me. 8 years, Sarah. 8 years I've wondered what I did wrong, why you left, whether I just imagined what we had together. You didn't do anything wrong, Sarah said, and she meant it. Alex, you were perfect. That was the problem. You were so sure about everything, and I was sure about nothing except that I wasn't brave enough to choose you over my family. And now? Now my family doesn't speak to me anyway, Sarah said with a bitter smile. Turns out leaving you and marrying a woman they'd never met didn't earn me any points. Divorcing her 3 years later and coming out properly just sealed the deal. She looked at Alex, really looked at her. I'm not that scared 26-year-old anymore. But I'm also a mother now, and that changes everything. Mia is my priority. She has to be. Alex nodded slowly. I understand that. I do. But Sarah, she's my daughter too. Biologically, at least. Don't I have some right to? I don't know, Sarah interrupted. I genuinely don't know. This isn't something I planned for. I thought I'd never see you again. I thought I could just keep that part of my life sealed off. She laughed without humor. Shows what I know about the universe's sense of irony. I want to meet her, Alex said. Sarah's first instinct was to refuse, to protect, to build walls. But she looked at Alex and saw something she'd forgotten in the intervening years. This was a good person. A person who had loved her with generosity and patience. A person who deserved better than to be erased from her own child's life. Okay, she heard herself say. But slowly. And carefully. And if at any point Mia is uncomfortable, we stop. Of course. Alex's expression softened. I'm not trying to disrupt your life, Sarah. Or hers. I need to know her. Even if it's just as your friend, or your boss, or whatever role makes sense. I need to know the person you've spent the last 7 years raising. She's wonderful, Sarah said, and felt tears prick at her eyes. She's so smart and funny and kind. She asks questions about everything. She wants to be a marine biologist 1 week and a pastry chef the next. She's learning to play piano and she's terrible at it, but she practices every day because she doesn't give up on things. She stopped, aware that she was babbling. Sorry. I could talk about her for hours. Don't apologize, Alex said softly. I want to hear it. All of it. They sat there in the glass conference room, visible to everyone and private from everyone, and Sarah felt the first crack in the wall she'd built around her carefully constructed life. It was terrifying. It was also, she had to admit, something like relief. The conversation with Mia happened on a Saturday morning in the kitchen of their apartment. Mia was at the table, working through her math homework with the intense concentration she brought to everything, tongue poking out slightly as she calculated. Sarah scrambled eggs and tried to figure out how to explain the unexplainable. "Hey Bug," she said, aiming for casual and landing somewhere in the vicinity of anxious. "Can we talk for a minute?" Mia looked up, instantly alert to the shift in tone. She had always been perceptive, had always been able to read Sarah's moods with unnerving accuracy. "Is something wrong?" "No, nothing's wrong. I just wanted to tell you about someone." Sarah brought the eggs to the table, sat down across from her daughter. "You know how at work I have a new boss?" "Ms. Reeves," Mia said promptly. She'd been very interested in Sarah's new job, had asked detailed questions about the office and the projects and the people. "You said she's really smart about design." "She is. But the thing is, I actually knew her before. A long time ago, before you were born." Sarah took a breath. We were together. Like, in a relationship. We were in love." Mia's eyes widened. She was at that age where romantic relationships were both fascinating and slightly embarrassing, where the concept of her mother having had a life before her was still novel. "Like you and Mama Jen?" "More serious than that, actually. Alex and I lived together. We talked about getting married." Sarah had promised herself she would be honest, would give Mia the truth in whatever form she could handle. "But my family didn't approve. They didn't like that I was with a woman. And I was young and scared, and I made some choices I'm not proud of." "You left her," Mia said. It wasn't a question. Her daughter had always been good at finding the heart of a story. "Yes. I left her. And then I met Jen, and we got married, and then you came along." Sarah reached across the table, took Mia's hand. "The thing is, Bug, Alex is actually your biological mother. We were going to have a baby together, but I left before that could happen. And then I found out I was pregnant, and I made a decision to raise you on my own." Mia was very still. Sarah could see her processing, could almost watch the thoughts moving behind her dark eyes. Alex's eyes, Sarah realized with a jolt. How had she never seen it before? "So I have another mom?" "Biologically, yes. But she doesn't know you. She didn't even know about you until a few weeks ago, when I started working at her company." Sarah squeezed Mia's hand. "I know this is a lot. And if you need time to think about it, that's completely okay. There's no rush here." "Does she want to meet me?" Mia asked. "Yes. Very much." Mia was quiet for a long moment, pushing her eggs around her plate with her fork. "Is she nice?" Sarah smiled despite herself. "Very nice. Kind. Funny. She's the kind of person who remembers people's names and asks them questions about their lives. The kind of person who tips well and holds doors open." She paused. "You'd like her, I think." "Okay," Mia said. "I want to meet her." It was that simple and that complicated. Sarah had built up this moment in her mind as an insurmountable obstacle, but Mia, as she so often did, had simply looked at the situation and made a decision. Sarah felt something loosen in her chest, some knot of anxiety she'd been carrying for so long she'd forgotten it was there. "Okay," she echoed. "I'll talk to her. We'll figure out a good time." Mia went back to her math homework, apparently satisfied, but Sarah sat at the table watching her daughter and thinking about all the ways the past refused to stay buried. About how you could run from something for years and still end up exactly where you started, standing in the wreckage of old choices and trying to build something new. They met at the Natural History Museum on a Sunday afternoon in November. Alex had suggested it when Sarah texted her, had said that having an activity would take the pressure off everyone, would give them something to focus on besides the weirdness of the situation. Sarah had agreed, grateful for Alex's thoughtfulness, for the way she was trying to make this easier for Mia. They found Alex waiting by the entrance, wearing jeans and a sweater that made her look younger than she had in the office. More like the Alex that Sarah remembered, the one who'd spent weekends exploring Boston's museums and parks, who'd had strong opinions about the best cannoli in the North End. She smiled when she saw them, nervous and hopeful. "Hi," Alex said. "You must be Mia." Mia stepped forward with more confidence than Sarah had expected, held out her hand like she'd seen adults do.
I'm Mia Louise Mitchell. It's nice to meet you. Alex shook her hand solemnly. Alexandra Reeves. But you can call me Alex.
They stood there for a moment, this strange triangle of a family, and then Mia said, Mom says you're really good at design.
Can you draw? I can, Alex said.
Not as well as your mom though.
She was always the better artist.
Mom drew me a whole series of animals for my room, Mia said proudly.
A different one for every letter of the alphabet. We're up to Q. She did a Quetzal last week.
I'd love to see them sometime, Alex said, and Sarah saw the careful way she was navigating this, not pushing, not assuming intimacy.
Should we go look at some dinosaurs?
Mia nodded enthusiastically, and they headed into the museum. Sarah followed a half-step behind, watching her daughter and her former lover walk side by side, noting the way they were almost the same height, the way Mia gestured when she talked just like Alex did. 7 years of absence, and yet the connection was there, written in bone structure and mannerisms and the particular way they both tilted their heads when they were thinking. They spent 2 hours wandering through the halls, looking at fossils and minerals and dioramas of ancient life. Alex was good with Mia, patient, interested, willing to read every single placard when Mia asked.
She didn't try too hard, didn't perform enthusiasm.
She just was herself, and Mia responded to that authenticity, warmed to it. In the Hall of Ocean Life, standing beneath the blue whale, Mia announced, I'm going to be a marine biologist when I grow up. I'm going to study whales and teach people about how to protect them.
That's an amazing goal, Alex said seriously. The ocean needs people like you. People who care.
Mom says I have to be really good at math and science, Mia continued.
I'm okay at science, but math is hard sometimes.
I was never good at math either, Alex admitted. That's why I became a designer instead of an engineer. Though honestly, design has more math in it than you'd think.
It's just hidden.
They continued talking, easy and natural, and Sarah felt something shift in her chest.
This was real. This was happening.
Alex was meeting their daughter, and Mia was accepting it with the uncomplicated grace of childhood, and somehow it was okay. In the museum cafe, over hot chocolate and cookies, Mia asked the question Sarah had been dreading.
Did you love my mom? When you were together? Alex didn't hesitate. Yes. Very much. But she left you. She did.
Mia considered this, dunking her cookie in her hot chocolate with great concentration.
That must have made you sad. It did, Alex said quietly. It made me very sad for a very long time. Are you still sad?
Alex glanced at Sarah, and there was something complicated in her expression. I'm working on not being sad about it anymore.
Sometimes that takes time.
Mia nodded, apparently satisfied with this answer.
Mom says that healing takes as long as it takes. That there's no point rushing it. Your mom is a wise person, Alex said. She's the best mom, Mia agreed.
Then, with the devastating directness of children, are you going to be my mom too?
The cafe suddenly seemed very quiet. Sarah's heart was pounding.
They hadn't discussed this, hadn't planned for this question. She opened her mouth to intervene, to redirect, but Alex was already speaking.